What's going on, comunidad? This is your boy Luis Ureña, also known as CafeconLuis, and welcome to this week's episode of Mi Gente. This week, I'm very excited to have our guest. He's killing it in the IT world, and I met him so many years ago. It's wild that we can sit here today and be like, where the fuck have we gone?
Right.
So welcome to this week's guest, Ricardo de la Cruz.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So I just mentioned that you're in IT, but I think that people should know that you've been in it for quite a bit. Yeah. And you're now director of IT at Barbarian, which is a digital marketing company.
That is correct.
So tell us a bit more. How'd you get here?
Oh man, it's been a long journey. Like being in IT for 14 years now, pretty much. It's been a journey as far as like just building up to like the lower, like not the lower, but like building up from a junior level, and then bringing like my way up to a director level. And it's been a journey, a lot of learning experiences, a lot of stuff.
I'm sure, especially because when we were growing up, I mean, I didn't know about IT jobs. I didn't think about, can I be director of IT? Like, you know? So it's still kind of a really new industry in a sense of globally, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, you do see, especially nowadays, you do see like some diversity in like the IT industry, but they're never on a leadership level. And that's the problem. And that's the disconnect. So that's the problem.
And then before we get into that, because that's some stuff right there we got to get into.
Yeah.
Tell us, like, where did you grow up? Tell us a bit about your background. Where'd you go to school? I know you're still going to school, so I think you should definitely share that.
Yeah, no, the story never stops. But yeah, I'm from Jersey, and growing up from Jersey, like a very small town, Bergen County. It's like right outside the city. You know, the town I grew up in was a predominantly white town, working class white town, and like, you know, being a minority and being a person of color, being Latino is like definitely like you stand out, right? And you're always you're taught to be careful and whatnot. So that was just the way I've kind of navigated through my whole career, just trying to just stay on track and just making sure that I did things the right way. You know, to get to a certain level, but then at some point, you know, you do wake up to these things, right? So, but to answer your question, as far as like, that's where I grew up. I started, when I got to school, I started working in the city. That's when I started seeing like other perspectives and like meeting other people, making relationships professionally, meeting some of my mentors and whatnot.
That's key. And then tell us a bit, like now, tell us your degree now, because you're doing something pretty big. And so share with all of us.
So I'm in the process right now of, getting my executive master's in technology management at Columbia University.
Hey,
so I'm very
yes,
very
wins,
excited.
yes.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience being at Ivy League institution.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you were recently, before your current job, you were working at Spring Studios.
Yep.
Very fashion crazy.
Yeah.
And then now you're at a digital marketing company. So like, how did that shift? Like, how does that work for you?
It's actually great.
Because it sounds different to me.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like the creative, I mean, as you know, the creative field is a creative field, right? So you get the same kind of people for the most part, the same kind of, I guess you could say the industry, but the work is very different, right? So like with an events and like being in fashion and being in like all production teams, it's a lot of work and a lot of like, you know, stuff that gets put into it. And then with a digital marketing agency, it's the same thing. It's just kind of conducted differently. There's definitely a lot less hours in the day compared to events. But it's an industry I knew before events, to be honest with you. So for that, it was easy to come back to. You know, the digital marketing. It's a lot more techie and nerdy for people like me that's going to enjoy that. So that's one thing.
Big nerd.
Yeah.
Loves history. That's how we bonded. It was
For
history.
real,
It was history, and that's it.
History, social justice, all of that. All of that, yeah.
So then, as you progress through your career, now that you're reaching next levels, like we said, no longer entry, through each experience, how did you feel as a man of color, right? Because I feel like for me in the fashion space, and where you kind of touched upon it, and you saw a little bit through Spring,
right?
There's not many of us. Now it's growing. But for you that you've been in it for 14 years, how have you seen the evolution of people of color, our community, within the tech space?
That's a really good question. I kind of mentioning to like what I said before, you do see a lot of people of color. Not so much, I personally haven't seen that many Dominicans in the tech industry as far as like where I've navigated through. But the biggest part is like the leadership is not a person of color. And it's not the person that's making decisions there, that's driving the department. You don't often see that. And I think that's the biggest disconnect that we have. And that's why I'm very happy to be in that space and to make sure to do something different. Because predominantly it's always been a white cisgendered male, you know, that's been always driving the tech industries. And now is where everything is going. Tech is running the world. So no matter what no matter what department you work in, if it's marketing, finance, anything, you're gonna touch tech, and you need tech to like do your job. So that tech leader is a key person to driving the business. And it's very important for us to have people that look like us in those positions to make the decisions, because we're shaping the company.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
So that's like a big part of it too.
Do you feel that where are our misses and where are our opportunities within our community? Because like you said, tech is everywhere. You know, I know within the fashion space, fashion was very much anti-tech until they were forced to adapt to tech, which is what you're seeing now. But like for you, in your experience, where do you feel like, is it about having education about roles in technology at a younger age within our community? Obviously having faces like you and having people within our communities that work in this industry is key and super critical. But what, like, where do you think that we have opportunities for that space? That's
a good question too. Like, I think from my experience, and if I could speak more on myself on it, I feel
we're not sponsoring any company. This is just personal. We're just having a chat.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, because I think what some of the misses are is that, you know, coming from an immigrant family, you know, you want to do well, you want to do better than what you were doing before, where your family was doing better than what before. So sometimes that makes us just only shoot for the middle and never for the top. And I think that that's the important thing, is that we need to make sure that we shoot for the top and know that we can be there, and that we are just as capable, if not even more, than the people that are already on the top. And I think that with us, like, you know, especially coming from parents from immigrant communities, like, we're just told that, like, okay, you just gotta like focus, don't make noise, just do your job, make sure that everybody's okay with you, and never go beyond that. And I think that's like one of the biggest misses that we have, because we're very powerful. We have an insight on a community that a lot of the world ignores already, as well as like we have our experiences and a lot of things that we can really contribute. And like, let's be honest, the new generation, well, the generations that are going to be dominating and driving the market, which is Gen Ys, Millennials, and Gen Zs, they come from a lot of diverse backgrounds. So we have that superpower to really drive that and bring that experience. I love that. And then for your job, where you see yourself growing, how do you want to make more of an impact within tech? You know, I know that it's not just, that's a loaded question. Hold on, I'm sorry. I don't mean to put that, I don't mean to put that weight on you, but where you are in your role, right? And for me, personally, I am at a role where now I can call out saying we need more people of color. And it's not because of the numbers, it's because we need it. It's a need. For you as a director level role, where do you see yourself making that imprint in those changes? Because it's not easy, because you have to stand up, right? Like, it's not easy at all, and it takes. And I would like to say that I think I'm in a better space about it. Like, you know, I'm very vocal about it, like you are as well. But I was never like that before. And I think, to answer your question, with the job that I work in now, I was able to set that tone from the beginning. Because I have my reputation to offer, I have my skills to offer, and I had my quick wins as soon as I walked into the office, into that job, and I set that tone in the beginning, and it was well received, which was not a surprise to me, only because businesses are focusing on that now, right? Like, we would like to think that everyone's genuinely cares and then all that, and honestly, it's really the money. The money's driving it. So, you know, these populations that I mentioned before, Gen Ys and Gen Zs, they care about these things. So businesses know that, so they're going to condition their business model, or try to condition their business model towards that. So when you come out of that space and you come with that confidence and make sure you speak on the things you believe, they're going to receive it better in a lot of cases, because they know that's where the money's at. So, now for you just touched on something really important. Speak about what you believe. How did you personally speak up? Right? Because that's another thing about our community, is that whenever we speak up sometimes, we're yelling. Or sometimes we're a little too aggressive. And it's like, bro, what? Difficult or combative. So how did you do it, navigating in a space in where it was very, you know, cis, white, hetero male dominated, and then coming in as a man of color and saying, you know what, no. How did you do that? That was a good journey there, because like I said, if you would ask me a few years ago, I would just like not say this in the workplace, right? But like, I think what helped me personally was that my mentors definitely helped. And even one of my mentors, who was a person of leadership in the company I used to work for, he gave me that space to be myself and embrace it. And then after I did, then he allowed me to continue going, and he supported it. So I think, and everyone has a different journey. Not everyone's going to have an opportunity like that to get there. But I think it's like once you realize something that someone else already sees in you, then you could really be unstoppable, you know? And I think that's what helped me kind of get there. It was just like kind of like having someone else tell me like, look, you're that dude. Like, you know, these are things we care about. And if people don't like what you are saying, then we can get rid of them. You know, like that kind of like mentality. And like, you know, just again, and if the place that you're working for doesn't do that, then you really shouldn't be there either. And that's not easy, right? Not everybody has a choice.
He's not telling you how to go quit your job.
Right.
Because you don't like your boss or you don't like your HR. But it's real, yes.
Right, like you got to get to a certain level that once you can have that flexibility and say like, I'm not working here, I'm going to work there where they're going to appreciate me. Once you get to that point, then that's where you need to go, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you felt every single time that you stood up or you said something, it was well received? Or do you feel like you've had some moments in where it was a little rough patches? I
don't think everybody, if I could be honest, if I was in a room with a full of people like listening to what I had to say, which I had to do in my job, my last job, I definitely did that.
Yeah.
I can't say that I think everybody was like genuinely caring and all that. I'm sure there was maybe one or two people here and there that were probably like thinking certain things, but they didn't speak up because the people that were in charge were supporting my vision and supporting my experience and were there for me. So the people that may have been the naysayers were not going to say nothing.
Yep. You know? And I always feel like when you come very prepared, you got your shit together, like no one can attack you. You know, once you stand up and you have your T's crossed and your I's dotted, which I think a lot of us in our community were raised that way.
Right.
You can't slip. You cannot slip.
You can't slip. You can't make a mistake. And if you make a mistake, God forbid.
Right. Which is fine to make mistakes. We all make it, right? You have to resonate and be okay with that. But I think that mindset is what takes us to that moment. And we're like,
the old school culture definitely told us like we couldn't make mistakes. And it's funny because like when you start to get to a certain level of a senior role in whatever company or whatever industry you're in, you start to notice that the people that were there didn't know what the hell they were doing either. And they were full of it, you know? And I'm just like, y'all were just doing whatever and you got away with it. Yeah. So once you kind of see that, then you're like, oh, you good.
It's a wrap. Now, you keep mentioning mentors, and I think mentors are so important. And for the viewers that are watching in, for you, how did you go about getting a mentor? Because one thing that I've realized in connecting with a lot of the younger generation is that they believe, or some people think that it's saying, "Can you be my mentor?" And it doesn't. For most of us that have mentors, like for me, they don't know they're my mentor sometimes. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So how did you go about finding your mentors?
For me, it's a combination of two things, right? So like, I think that when I've talked to other people that were like my peers, like whether it was in school or whatever, that were my age or like navigating, they were always too shy to approach somebody like that. So I think that boldness and that approach to learn from somebody is something that's key, because everyone's like afraid to go up to somebody and say like, hey, can like I learn from you? But if you really like just kind of ignore your own internal thoughts about like a mentor, like people like to share themselves, people like to give back, people like to talk about the work that they've done, their experiences, right? So people, at least in my experience, have been very happy to receive that kind of like approach, you know. And for me, I also didn't just I didn't just jump into it like you said, where somebody's like, can you be my mentor? Right. It was an ongoing conversation and things like that. And like, it was like a relationship that was building and brewing. And then from there, I kind of like went straight forward and I was like, look, I really like the things that you've taught me. I look up to you for X, Y, and Z. I would like to continue to learn from you. And even like, what we need to understand is that getting a mentor or even being a mentor is not hard work, right? Like, I mean, it's not like I have to stay up every day doing something, preparing things to talk about. You're just really sharing yourself. And like, that's what they're essentially doing for you. So there shouldn't be any kind of like, how should I explain it? Like
pressure on it?
Yeah, like somebody shouldn't be afraid to approach somebody for mentorship. And I think it's important. Mentorship is so important. And like, there's every type of mentor. You're gonna have different types of mentors, and I think that they're important for so many individual things.
I love that. So, I also think about back when I was in high school, and teachers would make you teach them sometimes. Yeah. And that's how you learn. Yeah. And I feel like that's what mentoring really is, because someone is explaining to you their process of what they've been through. Right. And it's just an ongoing, like a therapist in a sense, without the therapy behind it, you know?
Yeah, like it depends on the mentor relationship, right? Because like I've had mentors people that I've considered mentors that were related to me, right? Like for example, like my older sister, she'll forever be a mentor. Okay. And that's more of a variety of things, of an emotional support as well as like, professional support. But then you have some mentors that are like, I have an entrepreneur mentor that's like, okay, he's going to help me with like just these kind of things. And then one of my other favorite mentors, she's not only a woman of color, she's an entrepreneur herself and a woman. So like things like that is like, I'm not a woman, but like I learned so much from her adversity and like what she's overcome just to be a woman of color in leadership. So it's like those kind of things are super, super important. And like, I think for me, what works is having a variety of mentors for different things, because you're a very unique individual person, right? So you're not going to find someone that's going to be exactly like what you want to be.
Right.
You just, you can have bits and pieces and do that. And then you get mentors along the way. Like, I may have had a mentor that I don't really reach out to as much anymore, just because I've surpassed that certain part of my career.
Right.
Now I want to go to this level, so then I acquire another mentor. So things like that.
I love that. I love that idea of having them in different fields and different expertise, to really have a group of mentors.
Yeah, because my theory is that you can learn from anybody, even the people that you don't get along with or you don't agree with. Like even the people that you often disagree with on a lot of things, you learn something from them just because you just learn what the other side is
You've
saying.
been through 2020. That's what happened. You went through 2020, 2021. And we had to, yep. That is it. That is the result of 2020, 2021 right there.
It's true. Like
these 2 years.
Yeah, we've learned so much in
been
these 2 years.
insane.
A lot of things that have been said for a long time, but are finally coming to surface.
Yeah. And it's getting real and personal now. Because I think a lot of times we are forced to discuss it. We're forced to bring it up. So I think that's powerful.
It's true. And it's like companies and industries and organizations that are not talking about these things are behind. And they need to be left behind.
Like technology. A lot of people that were behind in technology.
Oh my God.
Wait, you wouldn't even believe it. There's a lot of, I work with a lot of mills in Italy, and they're still very paper. They don't use technology. I was thinking about it, like, they need someone like Rick to come and just like do it up.
My last company I worked for, they were very, they have a Milan office, Spring Studios.
Yeah.
And I always enjoyed working with their Italian staff because it was just a different perspective.
Different.
The
siestas, the work-life balance.
It's definitely different.
It's a whole different vibe.
Yeah, definitely a lot more like paper versus computer.
So like now that we're about to wrap up this part and go on to the podcast and get really, really deep on some of these questions.
That's cool.
You threw a lot out there. It's time to dig into that.
I'm all for it.
So before we wrap up, where you're at now, you've had a way, you've had a journey, you've been through a lot of shit, and you're standing here.
Right.
Now, when you look back and you're like, damn, like I've killed it, but we have lessons. A lot of times we have to look back to really learn about the lessons.
Right.
Because we don't acknowledge it.
Right.
When you think about the youth, you think about our younger generation, what is it, like, what's something that you learned that you feel that they can take from you, looking back?
I think with the youth, especially youth that, like looking at my younger self, I think what's important is once you recognize your superpower or whatever you bring to the table, and it doesn't have to be your tech, for me, it doesn't have to be my tech experience. It's like my uniqueness to that industry. So it's like when you realize what your superpower is and like how you can maximize it and how it's gotten you through a lot of different things, like go at that. Maximize it, focus on it, and use that to your ability. For me, I think one of my superpowers is that I feel like I connect with a different group of men. Like I connect with a lot of different people, and I think that even like I have a way of just like speaking with people and just like we connect and we vibe. And it's not just one type of person. And I think that I've used that to just kind of get myself into a lot of spaces, have a lot of conversations, learn a lot from all these people, as well as make sure that the things that I believe in is said in these conversations. So I think once you find, and if you're an introverted person, I mean, of course, you're not going to have that same experience, but there's people that are introverted that I know that are like amazing in other things that I'm not. Yeah. So I feel like just finding your superpower and seeing what you bring to the table and finding like how you can navigate that way and just maximize it is the best thing.
I love that. Now, y'all gotta find your superpower. If you know it, share with us.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's cool. Reach out. We can help you. Maybe.
Everyone has a superpower.
Everyone has a superpower.
Everyone.
So, Rick, thank you so much. Ricardo, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone, catch us now on the podcast. Again, it's Café con Luis, the Mi Gente series. Check it out now. Thank you for being with us.